So are you seeing people based upon their history or their destiny? So at that moment, I knew he's invited me not to see what my natural eyes are seeing, because I could already say, but I want to see him the way Father sees him.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Green Room. First of all, I just want to take a second and just thank all of you who've been watching, following, liking, subscribing. This has been a crazy journey, and I know you guys love it. I love it, and thank you. Just thank you for being part of this. And this week, we have my good friend, someone who I met 20 years ago in Cuba. And his name is Leif Hetland. He's been on before, and I'm telling you, this episode, as far as recording this year, was one for the record books for me. You're going to love it. So please enjoy it and like, subscribe, do all the things, leave a comment. It helps the algorithm. And before we go into the episode, we are about to start a spring online missions training. I know as you've been watching this, many of you have gotten the heart for missions. There isn't a better place than to steward that in our online mission school. It's super cheap. There's going to be a discount code down below for $10 off. So you're not going to want to miss it. And listen, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode with Leif Hetland from Global Mission Awareness. Love you guys. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Iris Global Green Room. You're catching Leif and I talking about our fighting days, which you've had some. We can talk about it later. I'm here with my good friend Leif Hetland, who's been on before.
Yeah. One
One
time.
And you're in town. I wanted to get you back on. I'm sure people are wondering why I'm wearing a tie. It's because I wanted to look better than you, but I couldn't. I can't. Look at you. You normally show up and just like you did today. You're the nicest dressed guy I have on.
Wow.
So I put on a tie for you today.
I was surprised. I thought it was a wedding or something was going on today.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to one-up you, but I can't. I even put a watch on.
Well, I think you won.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. I mean,
Yeah.
This is an upgrade.
This is uncomfortable. I'm going to take this off. Tell me about your sweater. That's a Norwegian sweater.
It is a Norwegian sweater, and I actually collect them. Being Norwegian, living in the States, there's different sweaters from different ski championship, Olympic games. So each one of the sweaters have different symbols, or it is things that is designated for certain periods of time. I think this one is from 1988 from the Calgary.
That's like a vintage Norwegian sweater.
Yes. But you can get it. But it's so I just collect these sweaters as a Norwegian living in America.
You also have a good supply of Robert Graham's.
Yeah, I do.
Which I was into those for a little while.
Yeah. And then you got saved.
Then I got saved,
Yeah.
and then I lost some weight. And yeah, they didn't fit as well as they used to. How the heck are you, Leif?
I'm actually doing pretty well. I'm a little tired because we were in Australia.
We were.
And then I went to Washington, D.C.
Yep.
And we were there actually for the presidential Trump's, the prayer breakfast.
You were?
Yeah.
Did you see the Girls Gone Bible girls there?
No, I didn't see them.
The day before?
Yeah.
I interviewed her, or one of them, Angela. Actually, we'll see them. I'm going to see them tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, they're coming here to Nashville. Yeah. But so you didn't cross paths?
No, we didn't cross paths.
Okay.
There was a lot of activities going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was hosting some of the Muslim leaders, friends from Pakistan and the Middle East. So.
What is that? What does that even mean?
What it means just that I had breakfast, lunches, dinner, took him everywhere, making sure the security and he spoke at a couple of the events. The Grand Imam, I've known him for 29 years. So for me, was just, I'm his brother and friend, and he has his wife with full burqa. So we're there at Hilton. So it's kind of an interesting environment, especially in today's political climate, to sometimes walking hand in hand with the Imam with his nice outfit and take him from place to place. But just being there with him and support him, take him outside, get him some halal meat and the food that he likes, and just love on him, and that's being friends. But also making sure that he's well taken care of and he's being hosted well with a high level of honor and respect and just those type of things. Yeah.
You said walking hand in hand. For some people that don't understand what that is, it's actually like
now some of the culture issues.
It's a culture.
It was a big surprise for me. I remember one of the first time a key imam came to Alabama, I used to live in Alabama. I live in Atlanta now.
Yeah.
And came at the airport. He took my hand. And I could see everybody here. I'm a Norwegian blonde-head, and he with his long beard and his whole outfit.
Yeah.
We walking hand in hand through the airport in Huntsville, Alabama, and even there sometimes in the stores. And I felt very uncomfortable. Of course, now I've been doing this for 29 years, and so it's a little bit easier today to just understanding the different culture context. But men and men often can show affections, but you don't show that to the opposite sex in the Muslim world.
Right.
Including your own wife, publicly speaking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the wife will walk behind us when we're walking around.
Yeah. In Mozambique, it shocked me when one of the pastors, early on, I was a missionary, came up and grabbed my hand. You know, that's how you get punched in the face. Yeah. You know, where I come from. Yeah. And so it's weird. And I actually had to get that culture out of me. And then after a little while, you'd just be sitting there walking hand in hand with pastors, walking in between our bases. It's actually really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I actually had some fun on Saturday. I was with a group of Catholics in Michigan, and the leader for the Encounter Ministry. I just jumped down from the stage because one of my messages is how comfortable are you with love? Because that's how comfortable you are with God, because God is love. 1 John 4:16. Yeah. And if you have love deficiency, you have God deficiency. And people are nodding because I'm using the Bible. And so I jumped down from the stage, run right in, jump on his lap, and I starts to hug and kiss him in front of all the priests. And the whole room just gets this kind of reaction. Yeah. And I said, why are you feeling uncomfortable? If you're comfortable with love and intimacy, but the whole place there just is a good illustration. So,
yeah, you like to poke the bear.
Sometimes I do. Yeah, I try to be a little bit more careful, have a little bit more wisdom after having some scars when I've been poking a little bit too much. So,
is there any time that you kind of pushed a boundary too far?
I've done it quite a few times. One of the times with a granny mom in the mosque. I mean, when we're private, we would do just like you and I doing. We have friendship. Just a normal relationship, but soon if you're with the president or you're with government leaders or protocol or you're in the King's Mosque, I mean the protocol, but I just got so excited, I kissed him on his beard, and I can see the bodyguards. I mean, you do not touch him as an infidel, you do not even touch him or get close to him, and I just got so wow, I just felt the Father's love and just got so excited, and I just gave him a hug and kissed him on the beard. And so we were later on going to have a meeting with the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And the instruction was, you do not touch me and you do not kiss me. So they have all these protocols of all the things I can't do, because privately speaking, I'm just very affectionate with a lot of them. Right. But then publicly speaking, I've just learned to follow every protocol and honor well. And so.
Wow. Okay, so we jumped right in. Let's give some people a little bit of backdrop. If you haven't seen Leif before, if you don't know who Leif is, give us the abbreviated version. I can try, but I'm not going to do a good job. Okay.
Yeah, I am from the country of Norway, and I think that people are aware of that. 59 years old.
Seriously?
Yeah, 59 years old. And been married to Jennifer for 36.
I love that woman.
Yeah, I came in 1985 to the United States. Actually, I got gloriously saved as a drug addict in 1984. Was called to ministry right afterwards. Left my country, Norway. So last year I celebrated 40 years. A full-time ministry. I started out as a Christian actor, and I traveled first to Germany.
Really?
Yeah, England, Ireland, Scotland.
Why have I never heard this?
Hey, listen, you're not asking me the right questions. You don't give me a chance.
I've known you for 25 years, Leif.
So anyway, so that's the story.
I've slept in your house.
That's how my wife met me on stage.
You were an actor?
Yeah, she met me on stage and saw me. That's how she first saw me and met me.
A stage actor?
Yeah, stage.
Okay.
So I did that. Traveled with a repertory theater company. I came to Los Angeles in 85 during Ronald Reagan's days. And then I was on a tour, met my wife in 88. So that was a few years later. So I traveled a lot during that time period. And make the story short, we got married in 89, which is now 36 years ago. Gosh. 4 grown kids, 2 grandkids. Mm-hmm. Couple of things that's part of my story. I had a major encounter. I actually went to Bible college, seminary, while I was a youth pastor, and then we moved back again to Norway. And often known for the story when Randy Clark, because he tells the story, he prayed for me as a Baptist pastor, had a word over me that I was going to be a bulldozer going into the darkest places, was baptized in the Holy Spirit. and totally changed. There was fire and electricity, and the word over me that you're going to go into the darkest places in the world where the gospel has never been before, make a way where there's no way. And then multitudes of people were following with me into the darkness. And 2 weeks later, a guy named Peter Helms with YWAM came up to me and said, you are a bulldozer. You're going to go into the darkest places, and 1 million Muslims is going to come to faith because of you. And I didn't know one Muslim. I lived in a small town in Norway, pastoring a Baptist church, and everything is both history and destiny. But it started a journey with the Lord. A lot of opposition, broken neck, broken back, body cast. December of 99, I had been to 54 countries, seen 500,000 people saved, 300,000 people healed, but orphan. Major orphan heart and orphan spirit. I was doing all of this to please the Father, but I didn't know I was already pleasing to Him. And I was trying so much just to, it was the orphan world where I have to do, and if you do, you will have, and if you have, then you become. And then December of 99, at one of my most broken moments, I'd just been kicked out of the Baptist, and my wife, kids, they were all looking at me. I was physically, emotionally, and spiritually just bankrupt in a sense, because all I wanted to do was to please the Father. And I performed, achieved, go-getter. Even with a body cast, I traveled across the world because this gospel had to be preached. And then through this whole crisis moment, I had what I call a baptism of love experience that took this Norwegian Viking. This liquid love was coming over me, and the Father spoke with an audible voice. 2 hours encounter with His love, where the love just took me back into my childhood and just was healing a lot of different areas. And He spoke that, Leif, you are my beloved. You're my beloved Son, whom I love and whom I am well pleased. And that marked something. The Father's already well pleased with me. I don't have to go to the Muslim world any longer. I get to. Before it was duty, now it was delight. Before it was pressure, now it was the pleasure. And it was this major paradigm shift in everything. And before I saw Islam as a problem, now I saw it as a promise.
What year was this?
That was in December of 1999.
99.
And that's what Jack Taylor had a small group of leaders together. And he also became my spiritual father. And I walk with him every day from that moment on.
So I met you, I think, in 21.
Yeah, 21.
21. Yeah. And then was it 21 or 22 where we went to Cuba together?
I think it was 22 we went to Cuba,
Or 2002.
Yeah. That's what
2001, 2002. Okay. Yeah. Wow. And so you've been on a journey. So I met you after your baptism of love.
Yeah.
And even then, you still went through you've had some seasons.
I've had some tough seasons.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about some of them today, if you're okay with that. I know you're an open book. And there's a few things that were on my heart to potentially hit. But you're about to turn 60. When's your birthday?
January. So
You just turned 59.
Yeah.
60. You got anything big planned for 60?
I'm just starting to look at it right now.
Yeah.
Because I feel there's something significant for me in that. And I don't know. It's I didn't have any struggle when I turned 50 or 40 or anything else. But 60, there's something here that I feel I'm moving more towards legacy. And I felt the Lord from now until I'm 60 is clear more about what I'm living for. Like I just got 2 grandkids this last year, but I feel so much of what I'm investing in my life is not what I'm going to do, but what I'm actually setting up the stage for other people to be able to do. So that shift is where I'm going through in life right now, to reorganize in my life, to be able to set up what we say is a ceiling that's going to become a floor, especially in what I'm doing in the nations.
So 99, 500,000 Muslims you had reached.
Yeah.
And I think when I first met you, maybe, I don't know, like when we, maybe it was 10 years ago, I had heard 1 million.
Yeah, that was in 2013, we passed the 1 million mark.
2013.
Yeah, because I have a video I sent actually to Randy at live event in the stage. We have over 80,000 people giving their life to Jesus. And so I created a little video that I sent to Randy and sent it around just as we passed the 1 million mark,
And then... am I correct? It's over 2 million.
No, it's 1.4.
1.4 million.
Yeah.
Okay. 1.4 million. But I heard you mention like maybe the goal in the next few years is to reach 2 million.
Yeah.
1.4 million Muslims.
Yeah, and I would say 90% that would be Muslims of those.
Of the 1.4?
Yeah, because I've been doing things in Africa, Southeast Asia, and other places. There's been Buddhists and Hindus and atheists.
1.2 million Muslims is incredible.
Yeah.
The church has a lot of misconceptions about Islam, in my opinion. I've spent the last year, maybe year and a half, doing my best to study. I've read a chunk of the Quran. I've read a chunk of the Hadiths, right? I felt like I needed to study some of it. What are some of the biggest misconceptions or the biggest issues that you feel like a lot of the Protestant church gets wrong with Islam?
Yeah, I think I would start with where I think I got it wrong in regard to that. One of the worldview, the root of Islam in itself. For me, it goes all the way back to Ishmael.
Yeah.
And for me, when I had my baptism of love and I started to see this, something changed in me. Because when Ishmael was rejected by the father, so he's out there thirsty in the wilderness, and as he is there crying out for thirst, God cannot be a father and he cannot have a son. That is the very root of that rejection that took place with him. So if you trace all Muslims, there's two major lineages that you trace. Ishmael is one of them that goes into the 1.8 billion Muslims today. 85% of them would be Sunni Muslim, and then about 15% of them is about Shia Muslim.
The way that I categorize Sunni and Shia, right, is kind of like, I would say the Shias are the more like kind of charismatic Pentecostal of the bunch. Like if you had to look at the process, they're much more spiritual?
Not necessarily.
Okay, maybe I'm totally wrong.
Maybe, because you would say inside it, because you will find in different streams on the Shia. The best way I would describe it in our world would be the Protestants and the Catholic world.
Okay.
Because the purpose there, because they are following is like the Pope.
Yes.
The lineage of who took over after Muhammad and following the lineage. And that's where the Shia follows. And so it would be more on a Catholic. I'm not saying it is Catholic or Protestant, but it would be more that world. But within the Protestants, you will find everything from the Al-Hadith, which would be in Pakistan, to Wahhabi, and all of the streams that is more the fundamentalists. They would be more like the independent fundamentalist Baptists. We believe in the inerrancy and infallibility of scriptures, and you do not feel or have much experiences, you just believe it. Or to Sufi. The Sufi would be more the charismatic that is open to spiritual practices.
That's what I was saying, Sufi, not Shia.
Sufi,
Okay.
The Sufi, which Sufi is, you can have some Sufi on the line of the Shia, but it's primarily on the Sunni stream. So the Sufi will be more on the mystical and is open for something. They dance a little bit. So that would be Sufism. Okay. And I have a lot of amazing friends that are Sufi, and I have a relationship on both on the Shia side as well as all the way to the extreme side of. I mean, for me, it would be in our streams if I had Benny Hinn and John MacArthur together as friends, because I have those kind of friends on the side of Islam, including just this last week. I mean, I had probably 3 totally different streams of Islam of friends that I was just with this week, and on my phone in the last 2 days it would be with the independent fundamentalists to the charismatic to the Word of Faith to 4 or 5 different ones just this week on the phone that I've been in contact with, and just build relationship. And that's for me. So that's one of the elements that for me was just that the way we view them and the roots of all of that. The other thing is even how it was started even there with Muhammad, to even just thinking about that the Christian was so weird during the time of the history. So even if they had a monotheistic worldview, maybe these things wouldn't have happened. So even there, when the great prophet Muhammad received the Al-Quran, the angel Gabriel gave it to him, and all of those different things. Many times I've been asking, what if there was some genuine born-again Christians at the time? There were some Christians in the sense of religion and the different influence that would have. Yeah. But even tracing the roots, I was afraid of Muslim, and I kind of had 6-7% of the Muslims that we are considered radical, and I also know a lot of radical Christians that are very extreme in different ways. They maybe act in different ways. But so that's kind of people didn't even know about what Al-Qaeda was or Taliban was before September 11, and we could care less. Right. For me, when God started to show his love for Ishmael and the Muslim people, that's what really changed me in December of 99. So it's not just a belief system. A lot of the things we say they believe. So even when we talk about Judaism, there are so many things we can say. And I love the Jews. I love Israel. I was just with some of the Jewish leaders also in Washington, D.C. this weekend. Actually, I was just thinking, I'm with the Jewish leaders and Muslim leaders together. We're sitting together then, eating food and taking pictures and having a great time. So I don't want to put a divorce between Ishmael and Isaac, or Esau and Jacob. And you can just follow the history here. But for me, the important thing that I think is so important for us to do, it has to do with our worldview, how we see God, how God sees us, how do we see the world and the future. And I realize that, first of all, there is some common grounds that we do have.
There's more common grounds than what people know.
Yeah, and even more than Judaism in a sense. They do believe in Jesus. They believe in the virgin birth. I know there are some differences.
Even the Bible.
They believe in the Bible, and especially the first 5 books of the Bible, David's book. They believe in the Injil with the New Testament, the Psalms. So they have a very high view, high level of honor. And so for me, it's always the question is, what is it I can honor about somebody?
Right.
And honor is what love looks like.
Right.
I can say here some of the area I disagree. I'm not a Muslim, and they know it. It's very clear even when I talk to my friends. So I could definitely clearly say here is the difference between Christianity and Islam, even as a basic. But I can say here's what I honor about them. Both of the 29, this year will be 30 years since I started this journey of building relationship and trust. And I've been to all over North Africa, Middle East, Southeast Asia, I mean Indonesia, Malaysia. I've been Mozambique, etc., Sudan. So I've been around Muslims from all different aspects. But something started to shift, number one, when I genuinely started to love them. And that was in December of 99. When I started to love them, suddenly something started to change even towards them. It was almost like a German shepherd. I used to be afraid of dogs because I was bitten and I have a little scar when I was a little child. And it's almost, you get a reaction. Dogs kind of didn't like me because there was a fear that I had. And whatever you fear comes against you. And some of that was also taking place in regard to Islam for me in the earlier days. But when the baptism of love came in, and all I can feel is because I don't see people the way they are, but how they're going to be. You don't treat people based upon their history, but their destiny. So you suddenly started to get, when you see the terrorist Saul, can you see the Apostle Paul? Love is patient, love is kind, before he's become it. So those lenses of love, when you're seeing people into the unloved realms and realizing these people are hungry, realizing how they are honoring. They're honoring the books, they're honoring the prophets, they're honoring, to see the way they are living their life. And now I've traveled with Muslims all over the world. I was just in Saudi Arabia with the top Muslim leader of the world, and we were there in Riyadh. But watching them, because I'm with them 24 hours a day, day after day, the 5 times our prayer, to see the dedication, to see the commitment. I would like to see some of that even within most of our stream and the people that I am with. So there's so many things that I honor about them. I've learned from them, and that's been one of those bridges that what I've done is to build bridges and say, what is it that I can learn from them and becoming a student.
Tell me some of the things, I actually was going to ask you this, like what are some of the things that you, after being around the Muslim world and serving, doors open, what are some of the things that you walk away going, man, like there's something there, right? We can see the good in all of it. What are some of the things that you value? You mentioned the prayer, the 5 times a day.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was just reflecting over on one of my last trips. I had one of my, for me, I'm so used to doing certain things, but I had a pastor friend with me. And he said, did you notice every place you went, Leif, every headquarter, and I was with Shia, Sunni, and all streams, and I'm meeting with top leaders. But he said, did you notice that everyone had their oldest son with them? And I didn't even think about it because I'm so used to, they're coming to meet with me and they bring their oldest son. They came to the hotel, or I went to the mosque, or we went to the different places. They're already thinking in the next generation.
That's
and I was
incredible.
thinking about the other day. So I saw that their oldest son, or the one that's going to take over, they're bringing them in to meet. They call me the ambassador of love. That's what I'm introduced. And the president of Pakistan, when President Alvi, Last year he went off, but he was the president of Pakistan. He gave me the International Peace Award as an ambassador of love to the nation. And so learning the language of love, that is the language the blind eyes can see and the deaf ears can hear. So one of the things that I learned there is the hospitality, the way they do hospitality. I've had people there that even are, I mean, I've gone in when 24 people got killed in the morning, and I'm the next target by radical extremists. And where some of these top Muslim leaders goes into my room and is in my room because if I'm going to die, they're going to die with me. I don't find that and they hardly know you. I don't find that hospitality in the average church.
Oh, it's just time out.
Yeah, so I'm just...
Say that again?
I'm saying that when I have been in settings where I've been invited by Muslim leaders, and suddenly, like one incident, but there have been several of these things that has happened over the years, where there was just 24 people that was just killed of attacks that was going on, and I am the next target. They're coming to me, sitting in my room for the next 24 hours in my hotel room, and it's there, and just saying that you are here and you are our guest, and if they're coming to kill you, they're going to have to kill us to get to you. They're giving their life.
Have you ever had that at a church? Have you ever had anybody do anything similar at a church?
I have not had that too often.
Yeah.
But I'm just putting that in sense of honor.
Yeah.
And this can mean a lot because we have to understand worldview. This is very important because it's an honor and shame society.
Yeah.
That's why we don't understand honor killings. We don't understand why are they reacting to something that happened 400 years ago, or why can't they get over it?
Right.
Because we have a whole different worldview.
Yeah.
So if you do not, but
even like property, territory, it's not like, oh, just buy and sell. It's family, it's roots. Like I hear a lot of people say stuff about, why don't we just move from there? That they don't understand. Like territory is more than just a place where you have a house. It's everything. It's the land. It's more important than the building.
Yeah, and even though what we had, hey, you pray your prayer, you're going to follow Jesus. But what they do not realize, and because in family, and family is everything, and you will find with the family, and honoring the family, and honoring the elderly, and that's another thing that I've learned so much from them, how they're taking care of parents and grandparents, and how family are coming together when there is something. There's weaknesses. I can take the other side, but of honor and shame society. And
we can always
else.
take the other side. Yeah. I'm asking you this, Leif, because I think there's a lot of people to watch this.
Yeah.
There's no gray. I know Christ is Lord. He's the only way, right? The only way to the Father is through Christ and His blood. However, so many of us live in a bubble where we read headlines, we see these things, we have this idea, and I actually want to hear some of this from you for a moment of what Islam looks like, what the culture looks like, because you've spent years there, and you have opened doors where I actually don't know any other Christian walking the globe that has the doors that you have. I don't know anyone, Leif. Honestly, and I think when I was just with you in Australia, and I know this, we were in Florida earlier this year together. I've known you for years, and I'm sitting there, I'm listening to this, and I'm like, I've been in ministry 25 years. I've never met anyone, I've never heard of anyone that has the open doors that you have into this world. So like, I kind of wanted to just like spend a little bit of time pulling out some of the things you've learned as you do have that open door.
Yeah, and here's a couple of key things also for me, because pretty much, like I mentioned, we're living in an orphan world where the orphan spirit is in control. And a lot of Islam was rooted in orphan. And so even there was the same with rejection, where there is father issue and the father is not around. I'm putting that also in place because many times from Christianity, we're coming with orphans, with an orphan spirit, and it's trying to get them to join an orphanage.
Yeah.
That we call church, and to leave family, leave parents, leave culture to be able to be part of another religion.
Right.
So that's another thing that we have to understand, because in Islam there is not, we separate all of these different things. Say, I'm a Christian. No, I mean a true, genuine Christian with Jesus is part of every area of my life. There is no difference. When I woke up this morning, it is the Christ in me, the hope of glory, and His presence is here. So it's not this Sunday. But for a Muslim, there's no separation. So from Islam is everything, and it is in every aspect of life.
Right. There's no secular, sacred. There is no holy, unholy. It is everything.
Everything in. So as a result of that, their worldview and the way they're operating is very different. But we have segregating these different things. So, and that is from the family to finances, to every aspect of relationship and what they do, and even how they marry in to different family. But the thing that fascinates me, when I did my doctorate degree, and one of my favorite books.
Sprinkle that little nugget in there. I love that.
But in the middle of when I was doing that, one of the books there is misreading scriptures from individualistic eyes.
Yeah.
And there was several books that I was reading, but suddenly I read that and I was like, this is what I've been doing for 29 years.
Yeah.
And part of it was just realizing that Jesus lived in the culture that I'm ministering in. But for us it is so abnormal, but the Middle Eastern culture that Jesus was living in. So when I actually went to all the Gospels again and I reread it from that perspective with the lenses from Middle East, and it gets a whole different worldview. Even this, we're reading a story about Jesus with a Samaritan woman, and we don't see the hugeness of Jesus showing up in Samaria. You're supposed to go around Samaria. Leif, why would you go to Moscow? Why would you go here? I'm a professor of Sharia law. I was just a professor in a Shia Muslim university for women. Muslim women would work out. Here I'm an infidel man. But where did I learn that? From Jesus. He goes into Samaria and he goes to a well and he sits down there at the well. And here a man and a woman. It took me 22. I always cry this because people ask me, what is the greatest miracle you see over there? And I've seen every type of miracles, the quadriplegic, limbs being straightened. I actually yesterday was just looking at, because I was reading about a woman for 18 years that had been bent over, and I have story after story of the things that I've seen. But I said one of the greatest miracles was when some of the top Muslim leaders that I know started to invite me behind, and the women took off the veil, and I'm sitting down, and when they call me family member, I'm in the weddings, I'm in part of their family, I'm in the family meals, I'm treated, I've been the best man in their weddings. With royalty in these type of weddings, and you're sitting down there, and the women there when they took off the veil, and one of them for 22 years I've been in a relationship before that happened. And covenant is spoken in regard to bloodline. That's the only way this can happen. It's only natural family that can see the women. And people in a Western culture, we don't see that.
No, I'm trying to figure out what's the comparison in Western culture like. It would almost be like somebody writing you into their will.
Yeah.
Like it is that significant.
Yeah, and the significance for Jesus to going in, getting to a well, first of all, choosing a well where he's going to meet a woman and meeting with a woman alone. And then Jesus, who is a rabbi, Samaritan, asking her for a favor, would you give me something to drink? Would that be the conversation of a woman who've had 5 husbands living with somebody? And so Jesus is so radical. And I'm just, so for me, I decided when I went back, reread the Gospels, when my baptism of love, I just decided that I refuse to following any of the systems that we have that doesn't look like Jesus. So Jesus is perfect theology, like Bill Johnson says. But I went back to just looking at Jesus the way that he was in a culture setting that is very similar to what we're living in with the Middle East, and dealing with some of those issues, including the Jewish Samaritan, that would be close to what we see now with the Jews and the Muslim, if that's the Hamas and all of the, I mean, the hostility. That's why even this story about the good Samaritan, it's like, there's that good Norwegian. What does that say about the rest of the Norwegian?
Right.
So, I mean, the whole language there, but to see how Jesus went about a city transformation there, meeting with his woman, asking her for a favor. That was the first thing that he does. That you have something that I need. I thirst for something that you have. And so I started to follow some of those things. What is it I thirst that I can learn from the Shia, for this group, from that group? So I'm just following all of those same. And then what is it that I have that they've been thirsting for, that living water, that. And so just all of these, and I could take story after story of Jesus there. I just went to all of those gospel stories again, and I started to get back into my life and how to live that, because it was written from a Middle Eastern perspective. It was written in an honor and shame culture. It is written where you have patronage, where you have a whole different worldview that we have with individualistic. Salvation is about me praying a prayer, receiving Jesus. While this is operating, the decision I make is not just for me, it's not just for my family, it is for my community, is for everyone. That's why even the prodigal son story is so huge in regard to it, because to see this prodigal son, what he did in rebellion, I wish you were dead, this affects the whole community, the whole village. And we don't think that.
No.
This is just
we just go, I'm a kid that's having my wayward couple of years and then coming home.
Yeah.
And yes, listen, you can draw a parallel, but what I hear you saying is there's much more significance around that story, especially in that culture. So you keep bringing up Samaria, and I find it's interesting. Jesus, they said, "Are you? You're demonized, and you must be a Samaritan," right? Like it was the biggest insult to be from Samaria, and it was a polarized culture. And Samaria is what, 20, 30 miles from Jerusalem? It wasn't even that far apart. The biggest divide, if I remember correctly, was the Samaritans believed that God was going to come on their mountain instead of in Jerusalem. That was actually forgive me.
It was one of the main.
It's one of the main divides, and they killed each other. There was Samaritan massacres at the hands of the Jews. But they were Jews, but they fought so much division. That's why when Jesus said in the Great Commission, he added Samaria in by name in the Great Commission, which he didn't name before. He said, don't. They actually went around Samaria early on, and they said, no, we're going there. So that being said, right, the Samaria and the Samaritans, there was this division, this hatred. It was the untouchable. It was, Jesus said, you dishonor me, or by calling me that, a Samaritan. As people are listening, and I think my initial gut response is to go like, well, are you preaching the gospel there? Yeah. Or are you like, when you get around these people, are you telling them about Jesus? I'll only listen to it if I hear the fruit of the radical conversions coming in the way that I want. What would you say to a Christian that can only accept you going into those places if it is with a gospel presentation?
Yeah. No, I think that first of all, it was the way that I approached it unto my baptism of love. But it was actually a couple of years after that. I have to share that one testimony.
You can share whatever you want. Yeah,
because it's I can't even talk about it without crying. But actually, Dr. Bob Phillips, who used to be with Randy he was with me on this trip. Anyway, so we went to this headquarters of this group that is very conservative Muslim, and it was during Ramadan. And I do that all the time. I go to all the different headquarters. I meet with my friends. We meet together. We have dinners, tea, and just connect or go to the mosque. So I always do a lot of relationship. And but anyway, so this time I came, he was very saddened. And I knew they were fasting, but usually they give us some water or something or tea because they know I'm not a Muslim, so I don't go into the fast. So we were there, but he said, I'm sorry, I don't have any. Usually these cookies or something they give me, I can't do it. My son, he just fell down, and they're preparing for Eid Mubarak, which is the celebration. It's like Thanksgiving for us. When Ramadan is over, the families are coming together. You're going to feast, celebrating the time of fasting they've had. It's just a phenomenal family time. I've been there many times when we have a big Eid celebration. Yeah. Incredible. Anyway, so he was just thinking about that, and then. But he said, my son, he was up to setting up some of the banners. He fell down, broke his neck, and he was the one that was going to take over after the father. And so he's in the hospital, and he's quadriplegic, but it's also, so he's been totally paralyzed from the neck and down, but also he's on ventilator. And automatically I'm there. I knew his son very well. I've been knowing this guy for maybe 15 years at a time, and I was like, could I go to the hospital? Can I pray for him? And he kind of stared at me. This is from a very strict form, the Saudi form of Islam. So I prayed right there, and I had enough favor. It's always according to how much favor you have in that setting and learning how to steward favor. Because I've had some people with me that think they can just step in and pray or have a word of knowledge. So for me, love is in the center, and then power and wisdom flows from that place. So it's not always what is right or wrong or good or bad, but what is wise and what would be unwise, because wisdom builds. So the story is that right afterwards I asked, would it be okay if I go to the hospital? And make the story short, he agreed, little hesitant. We went there, had some guards with guns and machine guns. We ended up in the hospital. I went in and I stood, tears in my eyes, prayed over the son. And here's my thing, is because I knew the favor he had in Saudi Arabia and he had with the president that he's going to meet with the next day, this leader, and he's watching me. And I declared in the name of Jesus, and I knew that his son was going to get healed there. He's going to stand up. And I've seen quadriplegic walk. I've seen miracles happen. Yeah. And I was sure this was going to happen. And I prayed and I declared and everything else, and nothing happened. And I probably spent 20, 30 minutes longer than I should, but just,
in the hospital.
In the hospital, standing over him, and there was no evidences of anything. And I left that place. Later on, went back to Islamabad, and I'm a totally different city. So I'm in Islamabad. I'm sitting at Marriott Hotel there, and I'm missing my son, Leif Hetland, that I'd been gone from. And I just felt like, and suddenly it's like God started to speak to me. He says, Leif, why do you always love with a hook? Why do you always love with a hook? You're loving with an agenda. You were loving so this person could get healed, so then that door would open up so that you could share the gospel, so that you were like a salesman that is just loving with a hook. I don't love with a hook. And I got convicted, and I went through this experience. Would you take your only son and to change place with this radical Muslim? And again, I rebuked that voice 3 times. It was not an audible voice, an inner voice, this thought that came. And finally I said, I don't know how to love this way. Would I let my son be quadriplegic? He said, that's what I did with my son. That took your place. So let Barabbas become free. So I knew that Jesus invited me into a different way of loving. Would you take the place? Would you be the one that is quadriplegic and vegetable the rest of your life? So that Imam's son. And I'm like, I don't know how to love this way. And that started the process. And in the next moment, I just stood there, and I knew there was no charismatic phrase. I just said, I don't know how to love this way.
Wow.
I don't know how to love this way. And the next moment, this wave of love just came over me. I knew I couldn't give something I didn't have. And less than 20 minutes afterwards, he calls me through my coordinator. My coordinator came and says, I don't want to mention the name of this guy, but this guy, this Imam, he's just calling me right now, and he said, where is Dr. Leif? Where's Dr. Leif? Because he just visited him, and he swear to Allah, he just saw you. And I told him I'm going to go to the hospital. So the hospital is in one place. This is in a city 8 hours away from us. So I'm sitting in Islamabad having an encounter with love at Marriott Hotel, visited him in a city, goes to the hospital, and the son is taking a ventilator and get here. And then I remember the Lord said, this is just like a drop of water compared to the ocean of love that I'm about to pour out. But it brought a whole paradigm shift from me. It's like what Jesus is saying there in John chapter 1. And the tendency we have is we love John the Baptist in John 1, where repent, repent, you repent, he's coming in. And then eventually what he's doing is preparing a way. But then Jesus is coming. So John was the lion and the gospel we need to preach, and repentance I came with it. But then he sees Jesus. Oh, behold, the Lamb. And then Andrew and another disciple that is with him, they've been discipled by John, but John points them towards Jesus. They meet Jesus, they're expecting some of that lion with very little lamb's hop, but instead I meet the lamb. And they're following him, and he says, what do you want? And they say, well, where do you live? And Jesus says, come and see. Just come and see. And they spend the day and just hanging out together. He didn't say, follow me. He didn't say, love your enemies. He didn't say take up the cross. All of those things follows, but that's not where it starts. So the starting point, I learned that also from Jesus, that let me give an opportunity, just come and will, and let's hang out, let's do life together, come and see. So I do not just come there with a hook. So as soon as I have a hook, an agenda, I'm going to do this, so you can say somebody got saved, which is a good intention in itself, or they can get healed, or I say it's my compassion, it's my love, why I'm doing it for Jesus. But soon as I have a hook, love stops flowing. And perfect love casts out fear. So I realized that genuinely to love these people, not because it is something I'm doing, is something that I become. That shifted. That's when the favor went to a whole new level. When I started just to come there and that's when they started to call me ambassador of love. It was after a couple of love encounters with God where I genuinely loved them. And I wanted what's best for them. The byproduct of that, they said, can you tell us more about Jesus? They are sick, they call me. On the phone yesterday. I mean, I'm on the phone with people all over. One of the key top Muslim leaders of the world, the wife is sick right now. I was over there praying. In the name of Jesus, presence coming in. And I can tell story after story after story, but all of that is not something I am doing with a hook, like what I used to be in my evangelical roots, that I'm a salesperson. They have a product, I have a product. You're not going to beat them with your product because they have the final revelation of Allah to mankind.
Right.
And to continue that way, but to always have a hook and have an agenda, and they have also their agenda then. But somehow when I just changed, that paradigm shift took place with me. That was a major, major difference. When you just went to love, went to honor people, building relationship, wondered what's best for them, started to serve them. How can I wash your feet? How can I solve some of the issues? No agenda. The byproduct of that then is you seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and now suddenly all these things are being added unto you. So I'm going to seek you first, and right relationship with you and right relationship with people, your righteousness. And suddenly he starts to add all these other things. These doors open up, the favors coming in. But as soon as I'm seeking favor, I'm seeking that orphan tendency in me. And so much of our operating system is what I'm going to do for God, because we don't know how to do it from God. And we are trying instead of trusting. We always have that hook in our agenda. So I'm saying that I'm still struggling with that at a time period. Especially, I give you one also example. Another one I talked to yesterday on the phone, who speaks to 60 million Muslims a day on television. He's kind of the media mountain of Islam. But it was also one of those examples where I got this. I saw him on television and I felt the Holy Spirit said, I want you to meet this guy. And I said, I don't want to meet him. I want to sleep. I hadn't slept for 72 hours, was exhausted, had arrived in the Middle East in my hotel, and I'm exhausted. And there was all this tension going on, and I struggled a little bit with fear and anxiety. And it was like, but this guy, when I saw him, he was kind of a scary looking, and just on TV, over and over again, his picture, I'd seen him. And I felt the Holy Spirit said, I want you to meet him. And finally, and I did it so I could sleep. I had a hook. I can sleep. So I send my coordinator over to his headquarters and saying, okay, if you ask the guy and his headquarters if I can meet him. My coordinator said, that's impossible. Don't you know who this guy is?
Right. Can you do some comparison maybe in the
It would be
States?
like Oprah.
Like Oprah.
Oprah. Okay. It would be like an Oprah. I see Oprah on television, and then you feel, you and I sitting together, we see Oprah, and I want you to go to Oprah, and I want you to go and see her and meet her and share with her.
Yeah.
You still don't know what's the next, because the first part of it is come and see. It's not follow me. It's not take up the cross. It's not love your enemy. It's not all of those. No, it's just the first stage of connecting. I was invited, and then you just trust the Father voice. All I do is what I see my Father do. Right. I say what I hear my Father say as a son. Instead, the other way is I'm constantly asking God to bless what I am doing instead of doing what God is blessing. That's two different paradigms in how we operate. So the story is that my coordinator came back and said, it's impossible. His assistant wouldn't even let me talk to his secretary. And I'm like, yeah, now I can sleep. And then I felt the voice said, I didn't ask you to try to see him. I want you to see him. And I said, I don't know how to do that. And the Holy Spirit said, good, now we can begin. So I went back again to the resting place and just, Father, I don't know exactly what to do, but you want me to see him. It's impossible. I've tried everything that I know. And he says, good, now we can begin. And he said, I want you to look at him. What do you see? And I knew when I'm looking on that TV, I could say, oh, here's an imam, and he teaches Islam, and I have all these followers, lead people astray. That would be the old evangelical me. But now I'm starting to look, because I want to see, when you see the terrorist Saul involved in the killing of Stephen, are you seeing 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind?
Right.
At the killing of Stephen.
Right.
When the radical, are you seeing that? So are you seeing people based upon their history or their destiny? So at that moment, I knew he's invited me not to see what my natural eyes are seeing, because I could already say, but I want to see him the way Father sees him. And suddenly I start to look at the television. I see a man of peace. I see a peacemaker. I start to declare over the TV. I told my coordinator, we created the International Peace Award of the Year in a big glass sculpture. I want you to go and give this guy the International Peace Award. And
what is the International Peace Award?
It was one that I created for that moment, because I got a word of knowledge. Like you get on
I just want to explain this.
Yeah.
You created.
Yes, for that award. Because I'm just like, how do I contact this person? Well, give him the International Peace Award by Global Mission Awareness to this person. And I thought this thought is so crazy that it must be God. And so I created this International Peace Award. So when my coordinator said, no, he's not willing to see, tell him he's won the International Peace Award. And my thought, in a humor way, I'm from Norway, so maybe you think it is the Nobel Peace Prize. But it was strange enough why I knew this must be Papa. I knew it was not my flesh. Everything in me, I wouldn't want to do that. I knew it was not the devil. It has to be you, Papa. And exactly what happened. Bob Phillips was with me on that trip, and a couple of other people ended up at his headquarters. The door opened up. 400 guys with imams with beard, women with burqa on the other side. We're coming and I'm presenting the International Peace Award to this guy. The atmosphere starts to change, and you start to give people, this is who you are, this is God sees you. It's a covert way of explaining to see somebody the way God sees them, and how everybody else around. This guy now is a bridge builder, and he came, actually, we went to Washington, D.C. when President Obama was doing the Freedom Act at the National Cathedral. And he said, I want to come to your home. And then we're heading into my office in Atlanta. And I'm like, I'm tired of Jennifer. I had to leave her in England for the team, my wife. And so she was not too happy because I had to fly to Washington, D.C. for this government meeting. Wow. And then when we're coming down, I put in my office on the top of the shelf the Al-Quran and the Bible. And I know some of my evangelicals go, why would you put the Quran high place? Honor. Yeah. Honor is what love looks like. So I had the Bible and the Quran on the top place in Arabic in my office. It was just a word that I asked the Holy Spirit for wisdom. And then when he walked into my office in Peachtree City, Georgia, he looks up and he sees that his eyes lit up. Wow. Because he takes the Al-Quran, just sitting like you and I, we're sitting sideways, and he starts to read the Al-Quran in Arabic, and I'm sitting there a little overwhelmed, and I'm so tired. And then I feel the presence of Jesus is just coming in. More and more. And finally, just 2 years earlier, when I had given the award to him, I had a word to pray for him, but it was not the timing. So wisdom is different than I have a word of knowledge. That doesn't mean it's a premature baby. It costs so much more to raise. So I spent another 2 years of favor before the moment was there, and now I could pray that word. And the presence came in. Fire over his stomach went down to his leg. After this meeting is over, I show you on the phone the guy in the testimony, but it went all throughout his body. He had severe food allergy, couldn't eat. That morning at Wyndham Hotel, he ate all this food he couldn't eat without dying. Totally healed.
My God.
And he knew that Jesus. Then he has 2 wives on the other side with 9 on Skype. I want you to give them what I had yesterday. Presence of Jesus just following up there. When I started to learn how to love without a hook and an agenda, and just started going in with the Father to do what I see my Father do, say what I hear my Father say, so many of the things that Jesus did was so opposite culture, including right. We used the John 4 right. as one example there. But when I'm watching Jesus in the way that he was, I'm realizing that I need to make some adjustments in my life, because I want to be with you, Jesus, become like you, Jesus, and I want to live and love the way you, Jesus, did in this mosque, in this situation, in this government meeting. What does wisdom look like? What does power look like? What does love look like? Always love in the center, and then power and wisdom that flows from that very place. But again, no more power or wisdom than love. So I always go back to the place of love, because that's who God is. God is love, and the genuine love that I have for those people. So I have so many stories when I started to love people without a hook and an agenda. And so with some of my evangelical, well, did you pray the prayer there? Or what right. if that person die and he goes to hell, and etc. Or what about all those close friends that are they saved? Are they born again? And some are and some are not. And I'm on a journey there, and I'm also thinking generational. It's not, as I said, it's right. not my agenda. My agenda is to be an ambassador of love, to represent Jesus and for people, because 9 out of 10 Muslims have never met a Christian. 99% have never met a Christian that right. represent a God that looks like Jesus.
Right. The fruit, so for so many missionaries, the fruit in a lot of the Muslim world is almost zero. So, not everyone. I know missionaries, I've heard stories where they've given their whole life, hidden, and they see 1 or 2 give their life to the Lord in their 20 years. It's a beautiful thing. I honor that. I love that. What, as you have met other Protestants that have given their life, they might not have seen the fruit. Have you ever gotten to conversations with them, missionaries, and they look at what you're doing and are like, what you're doing is wrong? Have you had any of those?
Oh, quite a bit, yeah, over the years.
Can you share any just like, because I, like, genuinely, I know you. I've known you for forever. I love you, like, a ton. And even you've shared stories, and I'm like, I don't know where that fits. I like it. I love it. I get it. I trust Leif. I know him. I know his heart. But even for me, it's taken me some time to get there, because I love apologetics.
Yeah.
I love debates. I love the Christian Islam debates, But even in all of what I've seen, I don't know anybody that has open doors like you do into that world. You're doing something very, very right. But yeah, what does it look like when you get in those arguments or the discussions or disagreements?
Yeah, and I think, first of all, I came for that same background, meaning before my baptism of love. So my first 5 years of the entrance into the Muslim world, it's not that I didn't see fruit or a lot of results, because you can do big healing meetings and rent the stadium, announce, and Jesus the healer show up, and then have prayer and salvation. But despite of all of those meetings that everybody is doing, and you're coming back, the statistics is still the same percent that is born again 20 years later.
Right.
So if I put it together, all of the ones that did crusades in Pakistan or evangelistic meeting, you had 770 million people saved. The population is 240 million. So if you're putting there together, so you have 3 times more Christian than population.
Right.
And there's still 1% born again Christian, or 0.7 and 1.5 if you include in number. So, and that's the same as it was 20 years ago before all those meetings. So I'm talking about both discipling people and nations. So I've met with many of them. I even had some of the greatest PhDs in Islamic studies that say, hey, when it comes, they met with me in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to dig and try to study my case, because there was some favor I had and something that happened that they were interested in. And they hammered me in regard to it. I mean, it was one of the most difficult moments, because I had a few of my Filipino Polyado and some of those with me, and kind of, here's my family, and I'm meeting with these PhDs, and I thought we were going to have learning something from each other, but it was like hammering me. I show videos, they see the signs, wonders, and
what are they saying? Is it okay? Like, what were they saying? Like hammering? What does that look like?
I give you an example that I did show one video where the quadriplegic is walking, the blind eyes is seeing, 24,000 people in an area where the gospel has never been before, receiving Jesus, clearly surrendered to the Lordship. It was like, you see the video very clear. And instead of even any excitement, it was like all the faces was hard. And then the first person comes up and said, hey, I watched that video and everything, but I want you to know that the devil do counterfeit miracles.
Yeah.
Okay? And there's going to be a lot of false prophet in the end time, the next guy. And so it was like one thing after the other. So by the time it was over, one person after the other just started one of these debates. And finally, one of the persons says, I can care less about those crowds and the healings and all these meetings and everything else, because the devil can do all of that. But what I mean, how did you meet this top Muslim leader there? Because I saw you with him. And I said, oh, the very thing you could care less about.
Right. Okay, hold on. Just pause here for a second.
Yeah.
Help me.
Yeah.
Help me, because I don't know exactly what I'm trying to ask. Why? Why is that the response from people that have given their life, their studies, right? You mentioned this is PhD, spent their life studying the Islamic world, Christian, they love the Lord. Why is that the response? Why isn't it, like, why is that the response instead of, wow? Like, why so much skepticism?
Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, it is a worldview, and there's a war on worldview, meaning the lenses, how you see things, how you see God, how you see yourself, how you see people, how you see the gospel. So if you also have a view that, I mean, some would be cessationist, that in the sense that
they were there at that meeting.
Yeah, that was there. So those gifts are no longer for today. Other ones is just the paradigm in regard to how you do missiology or how you do mission in the Muslim world. They have a paradigm of how you've been trained, how you're going to do it, and this is the right way of doing it. It's like you've been fishing all night, getting very little, and now somebody else show you a whole different way of fishing. And there's more fish than they can handle, but this is the only way we've been trained. But the interesting thing from that meeting, also, I have to put, I went with I've started almost crying.
Go for it.
I was with some of my group of my Filipinos, and one guy, he actually died not long ago, was only a little 4'5", tall, tiny little Filipino. He carried my bag. And I walked after that meeting. I was so rejected, so beaten down. I felt like I had wasted his time by all these intellectuals that I tried to explain and share and everything else. But it was not an interest I wanted to learn. It was just more hammering. So I just felt a little sorry for myself, a little pity party. I had hoped that this was maybe going to open up for many of them to be able to at least, I wanted to learn from them, but also for them to could learn, because that's why they brought me in. But then my Filipinos was there. And he carried my bag, and I just started weeping. God said, that's your family. And I was just so overwhelmed by this poor Filipino kind of that nobody wanted. So we went back to this room, same room where the debate was going on, because it was empty then that evening. And we were going to get, and we soaked. And then the presence of God came into that room, the glory. It was the first time I had the glory. When nobody could move, the weight of God's glory was there. For over 2 hours, I couldn't move 1 inch. They couldn't move. And it's kind of fun because my nose was itching. So I was trying to ask Paul, who was laying by the side of me, could you scratch my nose? Because my nose was itching so much, but I couldn't lift because the weightiness of God's glory. And something shifted. Later on, one of those PhD called me that morning. I said, we need to meet. I was up last night and I've been thinking about it. Another one flew to Ankeny, Iowa to meet me from the Middle East. And Ankeny, Iowa met me with me there. God started to do something separately, sovereignly speaking. We were in the glory. And God started to work on those people and their hearts. I'm not saying all of them, but there was several of those key people in that room that day that later on God started to work on and came to me. And still I have a relationship with 2 of those organizations today that came as a result of actually I just was received from another one to coming into the Middle East to help with some of their workers, to help with, especially the thing that's come from a place of love. We have recognized that the key for you, that I have love in the center. If you had power, we wouldn't have gone it, but because you have love in the center of what you do, and power is the byproduct, healing the sick and all these other things that flows and the testimonies of that. So they want us to learn the language of love. They know Arabic, they know the cultural languages, they've done a lot of the contextualization and even some of the Chrislam. They've tried everything. And
Chrislam,
So they're trying to find different ways to get something to work. And again, for me, I'm not saying I have found it. I've just been on a journey where I'm learning to love well. I've fallen in love with them. I've been adopted into their families. And suddenly these doors has opened up throughout the world. I've been able to solve some of their issue with some wisdom behind the scenes. Been able to be part of something that is just now starts to be very exciting for me. That has also given me uncommon favor. We have a lot of churches. We have over 200,000 people in a weekly discipleship just in the country of Pakistan. So it's not that we don't have, we talk about one side of our ministry. We have Bible college. We just opened up the 11th campus right now through our Bible college, raising up leadership. So we are involved, and I'm very much involved with the persecuted church, and also able to be an ambassador of love to stop a lot of persecution. And many times these top Muslim leaders that we don't see goes in and stop when some of the evil is taking place. And at least a dozen times that has happened when they're attacking our brothers and sisters. I call some of my friends, they going in and they stop the evil that is going on.
Can people just hear what you just said? I think we need I just want to slow this down for a moment. The favor that you have, the friendships that you've made, that many people don't understand and don't like. You've been able to bring in leaders. Is this what I'm hearing you say? That have stood up for the persecution of Christians and stopped it because you've made phone calls. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Many times. And it's happening on a regular basis in different places in the Middle East.
You've never mentioned this to me. Can I ask you a question? You don't have to answer it. And I can remove this later on from the podcast if you don't like this, okay? Have you been part of any backroom deals of bringing even warring or groups together? Have you been?
Yes.
How does that happen? What is that?
I'm actually involved in something right now that is going on. But again, of course, I cannot be public. So it's consistently, because part of my calling as an ambassador of love is to, first of all, represent Jesus, the King. And America is not I live in America. I'm Norwegian and American. But that's not really my home. Heaven is my home, and I am here as a visitor representing my King as an ambassador. I have to understand the culture I'm in, but part of that ministry is a ministry of reconciliation. And it is often, if that's being tension of Shias. A lot of Shias are being persecuted, other groups are being persecuted, but there's other times also there's Sunnis in certain places being persecuted. So then I go to my Shia friends, so it's not just against Christians, but it's also other war or tension that is going on with different justice issue. I am trying to be wise of which one, because I try to stay within my lane. Not every issue is my call. There's been times when Heidi has called me, and when there's different issues that's going on, and so I've been brought in different places in Africa, in the Middle East, or in Afghanistan, Pakistan, different parts of the world when something is going in, because of the relationship that I have on different sides of groups that trust me. And as a result of that, I get to be able to coming in with some wisdom behind the scenes. So they are sometimes directly in the sense, or other times I have key leaders that are the top negotiator that are coming to me and just asking, okay, in this situation, or what would be the wise thing to do? What does this look like? Where do we stand firm and still love well is my way of saying that language.
Have you ever worked with any of the Baha'i faith?
Yes.
And the persecuted Baha'i?
Yeah. But I have not had much to do with them. But there's been in several different settings, including now in Washington, D.C. One of the key Baha'i was just there now for the event that we just, the International Religious Freedom Forum. So, but yeah, there's been Baha'i, but there's also a couple of other groups that are fringe groups that in some places they pretty much want like an ethnic cleansing. They want to clean it out of some of that. Yeah. Hindus also, of course, it was because Pakistan was in 1947. It was divided with India became the Hindu and Pakistan the Muslim, and then in 71 Bangladesh and Pakistan kind of got divorced in two different countries. Yeah. So as a result, there's still some Hindus in Pakistan, and I'm also friends with a Hindu. I'm friends with a Sikh when there's been. So I was just also in DC last week, one of the top Sikh leader who's the head of the Punjab province, the largest province. So we were together there and with Muslim leaders. So because I've spent years of building relationship, and I meet with the Hindus, I meet with the Pope representative, we have relationship and all those, and each one of them have a trust factor towards me. They maybe have a hatred towards
each other.
Yeah. But because they trust me, so and sometimes that is behind closed door, where I can bring the Sunni and the Shia into my hotel room or in certain private setting, or the same is also with Sikh or Hindu, building relationship behind the scenes. And there's a few other people that does this very well, that is part of their ministry that I also work with. But my thing is just that stewarding favor in a good way that adds value, but be careful that I do it in a wise way, so that I'm honoring well the different leaders. If not, I'm just using withdrawals constantly of the relationship I have, and that's.
Have you ever? I know some of my friends that work in more of the Arabic, wealthier parts. I've heard stories of them trying to be bought, right? Hit like exorbitant amounts of money to buy favor. Have you experienced any of that?
You experience, but from my realm, it has been more that there's opportunities, like a couple of events I've just done in some of the Arab world, where I'm making sure I would pay for everything. Because it's also the honor and shame society is also, you have a patronage, meaning that if I'm coming in, if I owe somebody something because of the favor they've done for me, so then in the next moment, so you end up either then in a compromise. So for me, that's been a very costly thing, because it's not like hey, church, would you help me? I'm bringing in these and things that you cannot talk about. There's not a whole lot of people that, if they knew what I was doing, to say, hey, we want to invest in this because you can't go public. So privately, it's cost a lot to do a lot of the things, for the very reason that what I don't want to, in a lot of these countries where there's a lot of resources and finances, and they will pay for a lot of different events. But then on the other side, now also you have to understand the culture, context, that because of what they have done, now when there's other things that need to be done, now I owe them a favor. Right. And that's where I cannot afford. So that's been one of the areas where I maintain freedom, navigating that with freedom, including a lot of the events and a lot of the different things, so airline tickets to the hotels. Right. There's a basic hospitality. They take you to dinners, to nice places, and you do things like that. So I'm not talking about the normal hospitality, but more just in the sense of we will support these projects or we will pay for these things. But if they do, I also understand I don't have the freedom. It's not just them. It's the same also on some of the Christian. In the same way.
Totally.
So it's on both sides there, that when there's a hook involved, part of my rule is love without a hook. If there's a hook involved, I can't be involved with it. We have to move away the hook.
I got so many questions. Okay, let's go 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
What do you see the next 20, 30 years in the Arabic world? Like, what do you see? Maybe even 10, 5 years. What do you see taking place? I know there's a lot of rumors of war. It seems like currently, as we're recording this, there's tension, right? What do you see as you've been involved? What do you see the Lord doing? What do you see the future looking like?
First of all, I think we are in a big challenge also in mission, including what is taking place right in the front of our eyes. We have moved from a unipolar world, meaning America has been the main power, and it has happened since Soviet Union fell in 2001. It used to be a bipolar world since 45 to 2001, where it was either capitalism or socialism, and the resources was going between these two polar systems, and whose side are you going to be on a global level? Now we are seeing a major shift that is taking place, and it has been going on primarily since I would say since 2002, the first statements came out that we don't want America to maintain the unipolar world. And part of it was also the response to September 11, 2001. Yeah. And this is important for us to understand, because when we respond with the right morality, it is not with a spirituality, but morality. When a nation loses its morality, that's also when they are losing influence, in the sense, from a kingdom perspective, and God moves away. So other nations rise up. So the BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, the alliances on currency and what's taking place, they position themselves on which side. And now the same has also happened with Russia and Soviet Union. So you have all these players that is now positioning themselves on global resources in a multipolar world. But how you do mission in a multipolar world is very different when it was a unipolar world, even in regard to reaching the unreached. And that's also including the Muslim world, which side, because like Iran has closely, and the Shia have closely been connected also now to both Russia and have had a close alliance, and to those groups. So which groups is the world? And now there's over 80 nations, about almost half of the nation on the world, that are connecting themselves to BRICS. And so with the politics going on right in front of our eyes today, while we're sitting here and decision is being made, there's these things. So you have the 30,000 foot view is that we're in the middle of a shaking, and we're heading into a major shaking going on. Yeah. And we have a tendency to see things from America's perspective instead of, so you have on the natural side, like I'm saying, all these things that is taking place, including now in the Middle East and what's happening there with Hamas and the Gaza, Hezbollah, Israel, their place and which side and who's going to be on what in all of these things. That's one side of the geopolitical. And then on the kingdom side for us as believers, because we have now navigated the biggest harvest that has come in, has been after America became a unipolar world, meaning it was dollar as the currency, it was a country, you buy gold and dollar and everything else, and we've been able to borrow a lot of money, and we owe $35 trillion. What's happening with America as a country now, in the middle of that, who is America in the next moment getting a trust on a global level, or are we creating a lot of the tension? What's happening now in Taiwan, what's happening in Ukraine, and all of those things that is happening. So we're going to, this build-up is going to continue to take place. If you study in history of the last 5,000 years, and there's been 26 of these cycles that's been going on before. The sadness is the last time at World War I, World War II has been when there's a multipolar war. They end up in fighting against each other. And so sooner or later we're in that. So we need a revival, to be honest, from a kingdom perspective. We need to be able to see that, including then the mission and how we're doing it. And that's also what we're seeing in our own camps. There's a lot of cleaning, there's a lot of shaking, there's a lot of things that is taking place. And 2 million people have left the church just in the last 5 years, leaving their faith, excuse me, not just the church, but leaving their faith in America.
Do you know predominant, because I know that the charismatic Pentecostal is the fastest growing movement globally. I've seen a massive push. I mean, New York Times just put out an article on the Orthodox, like tons of young men specifically are joining the Orthodox Church. Do you know what background those 2 million are? Like what sort of Protestant what denomination.
But I do see pretty much what we are seeing. I mean, I'm constantly thinking in my 3 chairs, which doesn't help us on the podcast.
Right.
But I'm just saying that we are seeing a lot of the people now that are totally giving up on their faith.
Yeah.
And some are doing the deconstruction. Other ones are finding something that had solid to do with historical roots, like the Orthodox and even Catholics. And other ones are seeing it. But in the middle of all of this shaking that's going on, I do believe that we have. I'm an optimist. I always see half full. I see the 30,000 foot view. There's 8.2, almost 8.3 billion people in this world, and I can break it down and what's happened with a Muslim or what's going on in this world. I wake up in the mornings like with the darkness, I'm in the light business. I'm so excited. With all the fear, I'm in the love business. A perfect love casts out fear. So I'm saying that I'm coming from that paradigm, but I am not one that just thinking that, okay, we made some votes and we chose this direction, and now everything's going to be smooth. And
another 3.5 years, something else will happen.
So some of the things that we are seeing that is taking place now in the front of our eyes, I think that for any of us that are world watchers and are watching from heaven's perspective what's going on, there's going to be a major there's going to be a major shift. I see even in our camps, including my own life, getting back to a lot of spiritual formation, going 100%. Back to the things that is unshakable, going back into some of the spiritual practices, just like silence, learning to hear that still small voice, learning to, in the middle of the storms, when do you sleep in the storm? It's because Jesus was asleep, because the Father. So when there's storms going on, learning to rest in the middle of the storm and using rest as a weapon of warfare. We see believers that are not learning, including myself, learning to navigate that, because you're going to need it if you're going to row against the storm and the next storms that is coming. So the people that are watching the next few years, what's happening geopolitically, there's about 11 major storms going on from a 30,000 view. And of course the enemy is involved in it, and I don't try to over-spiritualize it, but from a geopolitical, from financially, from everything else that is taking place. But watching, for me, I've been watching, especially in the last 22 years, like this chess game from what Putin has done to Xi Jinping, and you just watch what's going on here. There's a setup that is going on here, and many times I'm surprised by leaders that they are not seeing. I mean, that we don't understand the time and know what to do. The sons of Issachar that God wants to raise up for such a time. And we're going to need a lot of wisdom in the middle of that, how we navigate and what we do and where you get favor. Because people can be interested in, when you talk about the Muslim world, which side. Because Pakistan has been very loyal to Saudi Arabia. And so which side are people going to be on in this big picture when there's 3 primary global powers? The Sunni is having their things, the Shia is having their things, but there's 3 primary global powers that is positioning themselves of which side are you going to be on in this, to try to create a tipping point. And then there's going to be left with 2 systems that will be left who in the future if Jesus doesn't come back. So to put it down on a revival, we need a genuine revival that was similar like the first and second great awakening. The believers, we need to get back on our knees again. And I'm not talking from a performance, but just humble ourselves. It is, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray. That's literally where it's going to come down to, is that we do need favor from heaven to be able to navigate where we're heading. And out of that, a genuine revival, a new mission movement that doesn't look like the previous. It's going to be different to be able to navigate where we're going in the future. So see, the biggest harvest we've ever seen is about to coming in. But God is also restoring harvesters, but he's also restoring family back again. And that's going to be one of the major things. I think this family revival, people are looking for family. God doesn't want 1 billion orphans. He wants 1 billion sons and daughters. And he's looking for... We're looking for fire in the charismatic world. God is looking for healthy fireplaces. And so he's building healthy fireplaces in the middle of it, and he's pruning, but the purpose of the pruning is not punishment. It is so that we can carry more fruit and much fruit. But some people, and I don't like the pruning in my own life, but it is just there needs to be a pruning for us to be able to be so connected, the abiding in this next season where we're heading. So that the oneness that we have with him. So for me, I know that the answer of what's going on, because nobody knows exactly in the Middle East. I think we just see the weather pattern of what is about to take place. And from that perspective, it has a lot to do, I think, from a kingdom perspective. seeing things from a kingdom. We're seeking first his kingdom. His kingdom is unshakable. So the ones that build their life upon the things that is unshakable, the unshakable trust, the unshakable love, but the unshakable kingdom and the unchanging person, Jesus, when we build our life upon that in the middle of these different storms, I think that you're going to see a group of people that are full of love, power, and wisdom that is going to, in all areas of life,
Right.
being part of a solution to some of these things. So I think it's going to get darker and darker and lighter at the same time as we're moving in the next few years, including what's going to happen now in the Middle East. There's going to be some surprises that is about to take place.
One of the things that is taking place and has been for a while are these visions that many Muslims are having of the man in white. Do you mind if I talk about this for just a quick second?
Please.
There's a couple of great books. I think, what is it, Nabil Qureshi? Oh, forgive me.
Yeah, it is.
Who's gone to be with the Lord. He wrote an amazing book. I've talked to some of our team that's connected in Iran. They're saying the numbers of people coming are just massive, and they're having encounters with the man in white. You can read it out, you can study it out, you can YouTube it, you can buy the books. This is taking place and has been for a while. At the same time, I've also heard criticism of these, and some real, people being skeptical. The argument, at least that I hear from the more conservative kind of Christian camp, is how could the only way that this could happen is if at some time someone had heard the gospel preached ahead of that, and they quote the verse, "How will they hear unless someone preaches?" Right? It's understandable. But I've also heard many testimonies of first generation. They've never seen the Bible. They've never heard anyone preach, and yet the Lord is coming and speaking to them, directing them how to find the Scripture, directing them how to find believers. I would love to hear any stories that you might have heard that would silence that really insane critique that God can't show up and do whatever he wants to do, whenever he wants to do, however he wants to do it. And I would agree, it is the seed that brings people.
Yeah, and I can be honest with you, I'm a little saddened when I hear about the man in white on one condition, and I will explain.
Please.
Yeah, because including last week in Washington, D.C., one of the Iraqi, and I was like, I don't want to use his name, but Mahmoud. I knew, this Muslim name, so I could see that on it. So we started to talk from Iraq. And then as soon as we started to talk, incredible transformation testimony. He's like, I'm a believer. He has an incredible ministry out of North Carolina. But again, he shared his testimony, the man in white, and he was describing to me how he met Jesus. And then later on, got the New Testament and got to know the Jesus that appeared to him. The first experience I had, Will, was over 20 years ago of that. I've had many, but I was actually in Tanzania doing this youth event in Dar es Salaam. And one of these Muslims that came to the meeting had been reading the Al-Quran, and this man in white appeared to him and told him to come to this meeting. And he's coming to a meeting where I'm doing a Christian meeting for youth. And I'm about to do the salvation invitation, and this Muslim is coming from all the way in the back of the meeting, come all the way up to the altar, gives his life to Jesus and surrendered to Jesus. And I was like, how did you end up in this meeting? And we got to talk to him, and he said, well, I was home, and I didn't even know about this place or know about this meeting, but there was this man in white that appeared. And he said his name was Jesus. And he said for me to come to this meeting. That was one of my first personal encounter with this, and I've seen so many since, including last week. As I say, I'm sitting with this person with the very fruit of his life. I have several of my spiritual sons and daughters that from Iraq, from Pakistan, from different parts of the Middle East, that was their first encounter. And I have some other unusual story that would probably put me on a list of criticism in more of unusual way people got gloriously saved. I just see the fruit in these people's life. Like one of them he's a Shia Muslim that in one of our meetings, I didn't know who he was. I was just walked in the meeting like I do in a meeting and just looked at him, and the presence of God touched him. But I could see he was not from. It was in a meeting in Seattle, and he ended up on the floor. I didn't know because I was just praying for people like in a charismatic meeting. And I'm coming from evangelical background. I'm coming from a school that is more cessationist. So my background of the 7 first years that I came from a very reformed evangelical. So that's my roots. So it's not that I don't understand that war.
Norway.
So, and then anyway, so the story is this guy came up from that very floor, and later on, but he said while he was on the floor there, I had a vision of the Father. I don't know if it was real but he described, I had a vision of God the Father, and he didn't believe God could be a father. And then the Father says, I want to introduce you to my only Son, Jesus Christ. And that's how he got gloriously saved that day. And later on he came to me, gave him a New Testament. He is a phenomenal, he's discipling all these people today, follower of Jesus. So to say that even if I follow Jesus in all the different ways, and even including the disciples of Jesus that was with Jesus, when did they really get born again and saved? Well, it couldn't have been before or after the resurrection. Well, what about all these experiences they had before the resurrection? Including them being sent out and them laying hand on the sick and all. I mean, so for any of the ones that wanted to have the orthodoxy and just saying, okay, I believe that scripture verse. It's like also we're seeing, here's a way Jesus healed. But to say this is the only way, and to take a sovereign God to say that if he wants to act unsovereign, then he can't because of his sovereignty. God cannot color outside the line. But the thing that saddens me over the man and why, and so many places, I go to places where the gospel has never been before, all over the Middle East, is when I'm coming to some of those places where people, where Jesus himself has appeared to them because we didn't go. We were supposed to represent him with the gospel, and I remember the day when he spoke to me, and I felt the Holy Spirit convict me, and I still feel tears, that the reason I had to go is I didn't want any one of them to perish, because you didn't go. You've just been feeding the first row over and over again, but the people in the back row has never once heard the gospel. So he himself is going because the church is not going, because he doesn't want anyone to perish. And that became very convicting for my part, including what I do is to invest my life. I placed it in an offering plate for the ones that have never once heard about Jesus. So while we are sitting and waiting for the second coming of Jesus, they've never heard of the first coming of Jesus. And they don't know that he's alive. So for me, that has been a big conviction. Every time I hear, and including this week, I just heard again, or not just hearing the story, meeting with the people, seeing the transformation, and hearing the story. But we had another one of those incidences that really touched me, Nampula, Mozambique. It was the early days when I met Heidi, and I was doing a big evangelistic meeting in Nampula. And I think it was in 2001 or 2002. And there was this crippled man that was there that everybody knew in Nampula around this area. He was in the back of the meeting. He got totally healed and saved. And we had it was not big like I do in some places, but 2,000-3,000 people that gave their life to Jesus in that meeting.
Wow. And
it was just gloriously, and my team was blown away, and all these healing, but people gave their life to Jesus, submitted to the lordship of Jesus, worshiped Jesus, the atmosphere changed, and we were blown away. So we were in this little place where we stayed, and this van came up with some people with nice suit and tie. And anyway, they showed up with their Bibles, and it was a group from America that didn't believe in these things. So my team was showing a little video, and here's what Jesus just did, but they got more and more angry, and again was talking about Satan does a lot of counterfeit. So when you're telling, so I was like, when we're telling about what Jesus did, so here, if I have a crippled Muslim that says that I didn't believe in Jesus, but now Jesus is the Lord of my life, I was crippled, but now, and you think that's the devil? So when bad things happen, you think it is good. And when good things happen, you think it is bad. And then I read the gospel and I realize, I see some other people here. Jesus, why would you heal on the Sabbath? Or Jesus. And I just started to read the gospel and I realized Jesus was facing the same type of thing. So for me, it saddens my heart. The beautiful part, I've had some cessationists that has been with me also that are no longer cessationists, that have seen themselves. Because when you get an experience of creative miracles and you see it, then at that moment it's very difficult to go back to something that is not biblically at all. Because it's on whose authority do people have to cut out 1/3 of the New Testament?
Their own authority.
When you believe in the inerrancy and infallibility. And the other thing that frustrates me, that people are talking about a lot of us charismatic, they don't have accountability. But whose accountability do they have to go on and criticize everything? and take clips and going on YouTube and everything else. So that grieves the spirit, and it grieves my heart when I see how people can just, they feel they have all the right to be the police officers, just like they were around Jesus.
Yeah.
And the only conclusion you could have, and I had one of the cessationists, I'm not saying a debate, but we just took a little conversation about some of the things that we talked about. And I told him, I just talked about Jesus. How that person, with the same conclusion he used towards the argument with me, the only conclusion is we have to crucify him. He violated the law. He healed on the Sabbath. He spit in somebody's eyes. Women is coming at his feet. Women are following. This is a Middle Eastern. I just took him through the whole journey with Jesus. And how would you know that this is God that you saw here? How would you know with all these things that he did when the only scripture they had was the Old Testament, the inerrant and infallibility of the Old Testament, that we believe in the Word, and that's the only thing we can test this with. And I believe in the scripture, and I'm so glad I had 10 years in evangelical roots and learned expository preaching, and even before I started to open up more for the Holy Spirit. But I had to read the scriptures after my baptism of love from Genesis to Revelation, because so much of those stories was based upon my biases and my wrong glasses, how I was seeing God, how I was seeing myself, how I was seeing the world. So it's a worldview debate. So you can read with color blindness, and the scripture verses you would see is with those perspectives.
I find that many, I find that many want to believe.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I actually, I find it hard to believe that you have Jesus living inside of you, and you look for ways to justify why those who are proclaiming salvation, you have to look for ways to go, they're not believers. That's not a real encounter with Jesus. You actually have to find ways, because it has to fall in your paradigm. And the reality is, if they say that people are having dreams and visions and it's Jesus, then it is the first block of the theology that falls down. And if they accept that, and I think so many of them would love to accept it. I really do. I don't believe you can read this and then in one moment and then reject people that are saying I love Jesus with all of my heart, all of my life, all of my soul, all of my strength. I love him, which is the fruit of what these people that are having these encounters with.
That's what I saw last week.
Yeah.
In the front of the granny mom, this person shared with me in the front. I'm standing there with a granny mom, and I said, because we're meeting a lot of people, because we have senators, it's who's whom in Washington, D.C., but also a lot of religious leaders. So we're right there, and I'm looking, you have a Muslim name. Where are you from? Iraq. And we started to talk. Yeah. And said, and he said, no, but I'm a believer. I'm a follower of Jesus. And I said, well, how did you become a believer? Because that's often. And he said, like many of us, I was in Iraq and in Baghdad, and this man in white, and he started to tell. That started the story. So is it wrong for any of these people to meet Jesus and fall in love with Jesus? And is it wrong for Jesus to say, come and see? And then he says, follow me. And then he says, love your enemies, and then take up the cross. And then, so even going on this journey that different people had with Jesus to see, is Jesus wrong? Is Jesus a false prophet? And do we have to crucify Jesus because he didn't follow what these people say, their plumb line? When Jesus was so opposite to that plumb line that I used to have as a plumb line. Yeah. So who am I going to follow, the man's way, the way of the Pharisees, or I'm going to follow in Jesus?
Well, they have to reject that encounter, because if they accept it, then they're not following through on their paradigm and what they teach. And so you actually have to reject it, because if you accept that, then you have to start re-looking at everything that you believe. And that's what cessationism, at its purest form, it leads to that. It leads to, you have to reject everything supernatural. You have to reject these Muslims that are coming to the Lord at a breakneck pace. The fastest growing church in the world right now is in Iran. And it is happening through the preaching of the gospel, through underground churches being planted, and in many ways, but one of the ways is the man in white. And if they accept that, then the house of cards begins to fall. down. So you actually have to look for ways to disprove that. And some of the logic that I've heard is mind-boggling and egotistical at best. It's scary. I would be the first one to say we got to clean up a lot of garbage in our move.
Yeah.
I'd be the first one to say that, right? I would say that. But God, you got it. Like you can't harden your heart that much. Like you can't. It's insanity.
Yeah,
it's insanity.
I've given out. I mean, we gave 250,000 in a 10-year period of time New Testaments to people. I never found one single person that just reading the New Testament, just the scripture itself, sola scriptura.
Yeah.
Not one single person have I met in all these years. We've given out all over the Muslim world. You read the New Testament, come up with a conclusion that Jesus is not the same today as he was there.
Right.
Nobody come up with that he doesn't heal any longer, because let's look at Jesus. What did he do? And if that Jesus is the same yesterday and today and forever, if he is in me right now, and if he is here, and we believe that.
No, you have to be taught that.
Yeah, I never met one single person.
Yeah.
Never one.
Yeah. It's we see the same in Mozambique. We give people audio Bibles.
Yeah.
They listen. Oh, he must do this in my life right now. I want that. You actually have to be taught not to believe that God is still moving today. Miracles, signs and wonders, radical love, radical transformation. You have to be taught that. It's crazy. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is.
You got a few more minutes? Yeah? What time? We actually don't have a lot of time.
Okay.
First of all, Leif, thank you. Do you need to take a break?
Can we take 2 minutes?
We could do whatever we want. I saw it. I saw it on your face. 2 minutes and then...
2 minutes. I've drank too much coffee.
5 minutes or 10 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, let's take a break. We're back. Are you back?
I'm back.
I'm back.
Yeah.
We're back.
Bum, 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 bum.
What are we going
to...
You want... I'm not doing it.
No,
you do the thing.
Okay.
Okay. They don't know what we're talking about. We actually don't have a ton of time because we have something on the agenda today.
We should.
We do. We're going to hang out with friends.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Thank you. First of all, thank you for coming. Thank you for spending. Legit. If you guys have not watched the first interview I did with Leif, you need to go back and watch that one as well. It's incredible. Just thank you for coming out, spending time. Love you. For those of you who don't know, actually, Leif is one of our Iris Global board members as well. Yeah. So, friend, family member, and part of the leadership here. And we're just so grateful for you, Leif. Yeah. So thank you. There's something that you do. How do I put this? There, as I've known you, not a lot of people know this. Some do. You are very much behind the scenes in a lot of restorations, the restoration process of leaders, pastors, people that have fallen or have. I don't even like that term. I don't know why. That are in a molting season. Some for serious things, some for maybe less serious things. But as I travel and talk to people, they're like, "Oh, Leif brought me through this. Leif brought me through that." You really do a lot of work behind the scenes. And I was hoping you could just spend a few minutes talking about your heart for restoration. Why, we're in a season right now where it seems like the world's out for bounties on people's heads. Some rightfully so. Like some, there actually is very serious illegal activity, and it should be treated as such. But afterwards, there's still a person, right, left behind, and there's victims, and there's perpetrators. I see you equally run into both, serving them and bringing restoration. I was wanting to know if you could maybe talk a little bit about what you've learned over the years, bringing leaders, but also maybe in some cases the victims of church hurt, abuse. The word spiritual abuse is getting thrown around a lot. And as a leader, I've looked for definitions for that. I haven't found a good one. It was just maybe, and I'm just kind of opening up a can of a lot of different things. I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
I just realized that on my 40 year of ministry that somehow God, I just reflected over it when I was looking back on the last 40 years, from being in Northern Ireland with a Catholic Protestant issue that was going on, or being in Kosovo between the Kosovo Albanians, the Muslim and the Serbs, or I was in '94 in South Africa with a black and white situation when the Nobel Prize was given to Mandela and de Klerk. And so Selma, Alabama, when I came to the United States, and the story after story, now Sunni Muslim, Shia Muslim, Protestant, Catholic. I mean, so I realized just it's been part of just a journey that I've ended up in. How do I love the Catholics and the Protestants? Later on, going to Rwanda and going around where there's been a mass horrific, or going to Auschwitz, or going to Cambodia where you're killing fields. I remember one of the first time it did something with me, because we did this big youth event in Phnom Penh, and about 4,000 young people, and I released the baptism of love, which is one of my thing, is being immersed in the Father's love. The scream that was coming out of 4,000 people, wow. I can feel it here today. It was something I never heard. The pain that was there, mainly because of the fatherlessness and the brokenness of this generation. And it just did something. So I went up to a friend named Steve Hyde, who was like a hero up in the north, and we were ministering. I said, could you bring victims, people that their family was killed and murdered during the killing field? So I had about 500 people, and I've done that in, as I say, in Rwanda, many of these horrific places around the world. I've gone in and ministered to the victims and bringing healing and trauma. Done it in northern Nigeria and different places where people that was kidnapped by Al-Shabaab, or Boko Haram in different settings. So that has been part of one of my ministry. But this time God did something with me. I minister, and the pain, including Steve Hyde's wife, almost every one of the family was slaughtered during the killing field, and what his wife went through. So the story, and especially when I saw the evil practices, the demonic way they killed and the way they did it, as you're getting it is just horrific. So it marks you. But then God started to say, Leif, you're ministering very well to the victims, but what about the victimizer that did it? And I didn't have the same love. And that was part of a conversation I had with Heidi one time when she called me in Brazil about what was going on in Mozambique, the horrific thing. So I asked Steve Hyde, do you know anyone that is out of prison, or anyone that was part of the old Khmer Rouge? Because I had never met any of those that was among the killing armies that did these things. And he was able to find some of these people, a group that came there with the tattoos, and there was kind of a no life there. And I struggled, because I had just seen these horrific things, and then here I am in this situation. And again, I just got broken down with tears and felt the love, and eventually just started to hug him and love on these guys with these tattoos. And it marked me. But just seeing God's love coming over them, because I see that in Jesus so clearly. And so that's been the other side. So when we're talking about sometimes people falling morally, or we're talking about, I think I've been practiced and have been practicing for many, many different years. I know I'm very open myself about my own weaknesses, my own struggles. I went there because of all the broken bones. When I went to treatment center, I ended up on opioids for quite a few years. And so I've received a lot of grace, a lot of mercy, a lot of love. So you have that side. And I was sharing with Jessica yesterday, because she was just asking me. Jessica Tay. She was just asking me, she called and asked me for some wisdom about some of these things. And I was just saying that one of the primary things that I've done, God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. So when there is still pride and arrogance, no matter what messes people do, when there's still pride and arrogance and covering up and everything else, it's not to be, you speak the truth in love. So if I give you this cup, the love is what you get hold of. The truth is in love. The coffee is the truth, but the love is what you get hold of. So even if you speak the truth, but it is knowing the truth that will set people free. But all the truth can do is to expose what is going on here. Then you need grace. So grace is not available where there is pride.
Grace is not available where there's pride.
He resists the proud, but he only gives grace to the humble. So the situation that I meet in some other cases that you even know where I was behind the scenes there, which is very hard, because you find out here's one mess, and then they covered up, and there was another mess, and you spend 6 months, 9 months, and they're never honest. And so you cannot really come with totally grace. And I'm trying to want to give grace, but you can't. The empowerment to do something about it, because change is very difficult for people, and especially with all kinds of addiction, pornography, pornography, different addiction. So I never chose. I don't want to. It's not even part of the top 10 thing that I have on my list that I like to be involved with. I just end up because I love people, and I think I do relationship pretty well. And so I stay in touch with people. And then some of those people, and many of them lately has been some of my heroes. So there's been 6 people in my life right now that I'm in the middle of. And some of those big crises that you see on TV or see on YouTube that everybody's hammering, 5 of those, I'm kind of in the middle of it right now, of different things, but on both sides. So it's not like I'm meeting with both sides of victims and these people and listening to the story and want to bring healing and restoration. And there is, so for me, one of the principles, stand firm and love well. Speak the truth in love. But what the truth demands, grace always provide. I think that when we give people truth...
the truth demands, grace always provides.
Yeah. So coming in, when you're giving people the truth, and the truth exposes what's going on, and somebody then sees, say if you get caught in an adultery or something, the truth comes in and exposes that. And now, when there's genuine humility, because you realize, here's what's wrong, and you get to the root of that. And sometimes you need to go several layers with the truth so you can get in what really happened, what is the root. But when that happens, this is what saddens me when I see on YouTube and everything else, then other people are coming in, we need to crucify them.
Right.
Instead, I do need to be process of healing. But Jesus always gave grace when there was humility. The one he came with truth was Pharisees. It was people that you will see on the YouTube that will sit there and hammering people. Those are the people Jesus came with the truth. Well, they are going in when there's genuine humility. And I'm not saying that all these people on the YouTube is humility, but Jesus always gives grace to the humble. When there is genuine humility, there is grace available. And what the truth demands, when truth comes in, it is to bring us to a place where we're admitting it, that we need grace.
Right.
We need to come to him. And then when there's humility, you can tap into God's ability to grace, and healing can start. And sometimes that is a process. So I'm walking with people in different part of the process. Sometimes it's building trust up again for the body of Christ, perhaps for ministry. Or sometimes they made a lot of messes, and we need to clean up the messes and take responsibility. And so like in an Alcoholic Anonymous, that is a phenomenal program that you go through the steps. So who has been affected because of your drinking? And then you're going in and you're seeing these step 4 and 5, you're admitting to that. And then you're going through, that's your sexual inventory, whatever. They have all these inventory lists you're going through, and you go in there because they realize that for these people, if they're going to stay sober again, you need to be totally honest with God and somebody else, and allowing that so you can tap into the grace. But if they're following that as a result of these steps right now you can take other people through that and minister to other one. That's step 12 with AA. So if you follow that, so I think we should need some of those where you just start with admitting it, and that's step 1 from an AA program, meaning recognizing that here's my issue, here's what's going on, and I'm actually helpless, and take people through a process to help them. And some people it's a process. There's other people, you come in there, there's already brokenness. I give you one practical example. There's this one, people found out that I'm involved with this one person, that I'm walking with him, and all I'm doing is helping somebody for not drowning in the middle of their messes.
Right.
And so somebody would say, how can you even trust this person after all of these things? And I said, and I told my friend, I said, both you and I, we trusted him when he was on the pulpit. Everybody knows him on TV. Everybody knows it. We trusted him. He was amazing. He was this and that. Now, he works with a limp. So why don't I have a higher trust from now? At that time, but he had all the skeleton, he had issues in his life, he had all those things we didn't know, and you had totally trust. Now when he's honest, now he's truthful, now when he is humble, you want to give him the law instead of love. Jesus is totally opposite. So I'm saying there's also the element of this, like this person had lived a double life, came out of all of that, opened up, light went into the darkness, he is free. And now we're going to distrust him. And we're going to spend 5-10 years to say, build trust when there's humility. He's walking with a limp. It's no longer a Jacob we're dealing with. It's an Israel. It's a new person that I'm seeing here. Don't I have more trust in that Israel than the old Jacob that I used to trust? So my friend and I had a very good conversation about that. So for me, at least, I do believe that there is cases that both you and I know, and because I'm sitting with the victims. I've been sitting with rooms and rooms of people being sexually, emotionally, spiritually abused, horrific things. Actually, Dr. Mike Hutchinson are in the process of writing a book called Post-Traumatic Church Disorder, PTCD. And it's based up, and I went to a church in Louisiana, and the Lord just spoke that to me. Talk about trauma in the church. And I've been treated for PTSD, so it's almost like I know, but I could feel this, not just church wounds and all of that. We're dealing with a lot of that these days, but this is trauma. People have been raped by the youth pastor, different stuff had happened. And 70% of the people had some trauma, and major healing was taking place. And I realized we want revival, but we are so broken, and there's so much trauma still, and how that affects us. And that really did something for me, is to going in, because I've had people walking with me through counseling and dealing with trauma because of some of the killings and some horrific things I've seen over the years in places that I've gone. So many of these people have trauma. We need to help the people. That doesn't mean help them right into ministry right away. But for me, that, yes, the victims was very easy for me to love. But I'm also learning to see that sometimes the victimizers, they need to have the consequences. They need to clean up their messes. So I'm not talking about just... But it is clear for me also, I'm just seeing that in the gospel over and over again, that we need to making sure that the truth goes deep enough where you can give people grace. And then for grace to start to rebuild life and to see where you can get reconciliation. Because we're living in a season now, I divorce here, I wait for a year, then I just marry the one that I had one with and back, and we're going on. And it's also created a whole system that for the next generation is looking at some of the heroes and...
Right. So I believe in restoration unto the Lord, right? First, not restoration unto a pulpit. However, there are many people. I'll give you one example. I was with an organization, and their solution for this was they charted out every sin, every single sin that they could think of, right? So on one end, it was like, this is just an example, I looked too long at a commercial on TV that I shouldn't have looked at, And then on the worst thing was like the worst sexual deviance, that I won't go into because we're on YouTube, but like the worst of the worst. And then every variation of that from A to Z. And then they separated each one of those into categories of did the person confess? Did the person were they caught? Did they admit everything when they were first asked? Did they admit everything after 4 weeks? Was there hidden things after they admitted? Like, so it literally was this chart, this spreadsheet of variations, and then depending on where you fit was the system of restoration, illegal, legal, or police involved, like, and that was their solution to try to navigate how do we deal with leaders that are falling, and I understand that. So I understand that there, as much as I struggle with that, I get it. It's people trying to make sense of chaos. What am I asking? What I'm asking is, how do you navigate pulpit, restoration of the pulpit, restoration of the Lord, and all the myriad of things that you have been a part of, at least serving people behind the scenes? How do you navigate that? What are things that you look for when you're walking with someone through, them imploding their life?
Yeah, and I think I do not have just a system for everyone, because there's been so much individual, including now where I'm at, and the crime has been very different also from somebody for some people a misdemeanor, felony, capital,
right.
I mean, whatever the crime was, there's the different consequences, maybe not in God's eyes in the restoration towards him, but then in regard to a trust element of what is going to be next. But one example that I have said that is kind of a general rule is the Jacob and Israel equation. That Jacob was always a deceiver and always came up with something, and no matter where you're going after, got the birthright, got the blessing, and
heel catcher.
Yeah, the heel catcher. So I'm trying to see, is there a place where when I'm looking at that person, they're walking with a limp? And what I mean with that is that the biggest strength has been touched. because there's an element here in any of these leaders, and it's the John Wimber that made a statement that God only trusts people that walk with a limp.
Yeah.
So there's an element for me. Is there a limp that happened in this, or is this just another maneuver, or another wrestling match,
Right.
or you jump into the next? But you're still a Jacob when you come up from there, and Jacob is still going to do a Jacob thing again.
So how do you know? Because I see people that fake, they fake repentance. They fake, humility.
Yeah, but I had,
you know what I'm saying?
I had one of the classic, and you know who this person probably is, that because you were where I walked with.
It was my wife. No, I'm just kidding.
It was it
wasn't. I love it.
It was not. It was a very profile person that I was in charge of this, and again, this person had, with a lie detector, he could have given me all the answer, but in my spirit, I knew. There's still something here missing. He knew my language, knew exactly how to speak the right language for everything. It was green light, and everybody else gave green light around it. This person, he's ready to go. We talk about not just restoring before God, but ministry, pulpit.
Yeah.
But I felt it in the spirit. There's something here. He's saying everything, saying the right way, knows how to say it, knows genuine humility, everything, and all you need to do is grace. So I sat there, and it's like, I don't even want to feel like I need it. So I'm trying to find out, how do I get to the root of what I'm feeling in my spirit? And that's where wisdom came in. So this day, as he was sitting there, I said, since you are so free and don't need anything else, I think we should just take a couple of more years. And that's what just came. We take a couple of more years, and just you can work some second. Don't need a ministry since you are free from that, and don't need anymore. And that's dead, and you're already dead to that. So you are free, so it shouldn't hurt you. But I really feel that's maybe what I'm going to recommend. And suddenly, all this thing that was in the root came out of the person in the front of me and the other. That all of them had green light. From that moment, it was red light.
What was the response?
It was just anger and all these things that came out.
Why should I wait 2 more years?
And all of this, but then the old personality that led to this problem in the first place was there, and I knew it was there, but it was just covered up so well. But I was able to I was like trying to find, how do I push that button that is going to get this reaction? Because everything was said in the right way. And it was one of those, and there's been several of those cases where I've just known it's something in my spirit, but how do I get to that root of whatever I'm feeling here without I can't put my finger on, because everything, they can even pass a lie detector on some of those areas. And so that was one of those incidences where I'm just asking God for wisdom in that case, because I do know in my spirit, there's something here. Maybe there's nothing wrong, but there's something that's still not right. And how do I get to that root issue? Because if you don't deal with the root, you're not going to get different fruit later on.
I actually have a solution for restoration. And I think it's going to your house and getting one of your dogs. Hey.
No, my goodness. Who says, Iris, come, Iris, come here, Iris. Where are you, my friend? Iris, where are you, my, Iris.
Which is what
God.
I did. No, not during time of restoration.
Iris,
sorry.
So we're going to restore you. Iris, do you still have a little orphan spirit that I send you away from Atlanta?
For those of you who don't know, I got my dog from Leif.
As a little puppy.
Don't drink my coffee. Come here. Do you remember the last time we had this? I thought you might like a little surprise.
You won this time. Last time I won.
I don't know if we won. Okay. I don't know if anyone did this song.
No.
I know we were talking about something serious. But I couldn't. She was just snorting away.
I could hear something there, but I'm trying to keep my eyes on you and keep my eyes on Jesus in the middle of all of this.
Restoration. It is I can't do this seriously with you here. Restoration. It's an important thing. Gosh, she's coming to you, Leif. I can't focus with those pig noises going.
I know.
Restoration. How do you know when someone's done? When they've reached, like they're restored, what do you look for?
Yeah, and again, I used the example there with an Israel. That was the root element. There's a genuine humility. There's no longer a hook or an agenda in regard to blaming, the blame shift, or all of those different things. So it's just some basic things that are coming up from that place, I feel like a lot of these people, when God has dealt with that place, there's, like for Jacob becoming in Israel, there was 3 things that he did. If you read the book of Hebrew 12, he leaned on the staff. There's a rest over them. Everything there that they did before is restless, often irritable. It's the nature of even what led to this thing, the restlessness. But now he was leaning on the staff. He learned how to rest.
Yeah.
He built an altar to worship in spirit and truth. They just become free. Worship. That's the only thing. It's this one thing I desire. This one thing I long for. Just want you. And if I have you, I have everything. If I have everything, I don't have you, I have nothing. I see a genuine freedom of worship. And then the way he was crossing his arm, the old is praying for Joseph's son, the old and then the young, but he crossed his arms while he did it.
Yeah.
He couldn't see in the natural any longer. He was old, but he crossed his arm.
Yeah.
The supernatural was natural for the way that he operated. And there was 3 evidences. It's no longer in Israel. But even when Esau was coming towards him, so if that's the spouse, or if that's the friends, the accusation, he bowed down 7 times in humility. Yeah. That was the evidence. Before, he would always fight or come up with something or have a reason. Or
right.
Instead, now, all he's doing 7 times. But then he said something, when I saw you, I've seen the face of God.
Yeah.
He himself, something had changed in his nature, that even the way he saw Esau before, that is coming to kill him with 400 guys, he's already seen the face of God in him. God has changed his heart and his eyes. There's all these lessons that I've seen here as evidences. There's something that has happened with people that I can take you through, that I walked with, that is more healthy today than they've ever been, because I can see something that their strength has been touched. They have a different name. Their identity is not in what I was doing in my ministry or what I didn't do or what was wrong. They have a different identity now. And they themselves becomes, because there's been a lot of grace. If it was not God, for God's grace and goodness and kindness. That's why I'm nervous for some of the people that are just very strong constantly, and all they do is speak truth. Because, as I'm saying, they're also going to be measured by the same truth when there's issue in their life. And so I do believe we need the truth. We cannot give people grace without the truth, but we do need to speak the truth in love. And I do believe that what we need is to help people to become free. That should be the thing, and to reconcile them to God and to one another, if that's family or whoever that is involved. And then the pulpit and those things, it's not a major focus on me. That becomes a byproduct now of what God does as a result of that. And then we just acknowledge what God is doing. So it's not for me to try to set them up for the ministry on that purpose. That's not my part of my process. It becomes a byproduct of something then that a group of people may be coming in and recognize that God is doing, and we are saying yes to, or we are seeing what God is doing, and believe that this person is going to walk with a limb, walking in accountability, walking in different humility, have a lamb's heart now. It's not just a lion that we're seeing roaring on YouTube, or it's the lamb's heart that I met in that process.
Leif, you're flipping amazing. Would you come back? Because I know we are out of time. Would you come back and we talk about this some more? Yeah. I think this is an important conversation, because there's just a lot around it, and it needs to be handled with kids' gloves. It can't be handled in a 20-minute conversation, but everything you just shared, I just love, and as I've served with you, underneath you, watching the process and watching it's not even a process, it's just the way that you treat people. It's so beautiful. And man, I want to learn. And I think I would love to have another conversation about this sometime.
We do.
So thank you for coming in, Leif.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I think we should run back the whole Iris thing like last time.
Yeah.
See who she goes to. What do you think?
Okay, I think we're...
Is she gone? She's gone. They took her up. Yeah, wow. She's just a big pig now.
And she make the sound also.
I know. Do yours do that?
No.
How is Suki, by the way?
Suki is amazing.
Okay, we're going to insert a picture of Suki right here.
That's my Boston Terrier, my baby.
Yeah. You've had how many?
3 Boston Terriers.
God, they're just a gift from Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I just love her so much.
Yeah, me too.
I love her so
and I
much.
Restore her back again over and over when she messes up. I have so much grace for her. I don't understand why, even when she makes messes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm scared Iris, my dog, is doing right now. She's probably marking her territory all over this house. But Leif, like truly, my friend, I love you massively. You have been such an inspiration from day one. I will never forget the invitation to go to Cuba. And I was brought in as a little intern to help manage the trip and the team, and I sat with you on the bus, and you just shared stories, and you treated me. I was, I don't know, 21. You treated me like I was someone important, not just some punk intern. And from that moment on, knowing you, spending time with you has been one of the highlights of my little faith journey. And man, there's something when you think someone is done changing. And I've watched so many of the changes in your life, just even the molting season of going through that opioid addiction and coming out the other side. As we were in Florida just a few months ago, I was like, I can't believe that he's totally changed again, like even better. Most people they just kind of plateau, but I've watched the Lord just continue to mark you, change you. I've watched you get softer. I've watched your message increase. Just even you going through the PhD, the doctoral program, and the passion that you gave into that as you're doing everything else. It's just you're truly a hero of mine, and truly, I mean that with every sense of the word. And the fact that I have you in my corner makes me feel like I can do anything, and I have someone that has my back. And I love you, sir.
I love you much.
Deeply love you. And your wife. And yeah, I love you.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Yeah, come on. Thank you guys for watching. Oh, Leif, if they want to connect, if they want to sew into what you're doing, how can they do that?
globalmissionawareness.com or they can look up just the name Leif Hetland, and they can probably find me or any of the books or products or anything they can.
Any books that you want to talk about?
Well, the last one is called The Love Awakening, but I'm in the process right now writing a book called Roaring Lambs, where you're developing the lamb's heart. But I believe that each one of us are called to, why would Jesus send us as lamb among wolves? In a wolf culture, how do we operate as lamb and finding the strength of the lamb? So I'm interested in that, and each one of us is to develop the lamb's heart so we get the authority of the lion. But when we start to roar, people will gather and not scatter because it comes from the lamb's heart. So just get ready, probably in the next 4 or 5 months, Roaring Lambs and then Lambs Among Wolves, 2 books that is coming out.
Wow. Luke 10. Go, I'm sending you out like lambs amongst wolves. Yeah. Come on. I love that. Are you on Instagram?
Yep.
Yeah?
So there's also the Leif Hetland,
okay. Yeah. And then do you also have some online courses?
I do. And right now, actually in March, I'm taking people to a 6 weeks journey of just intense coaching, encounter, and everything else of some of the things we talked about.
Define coaching.
Coaching meaning that I have a couple of coaches that's coming in that's going to help people to take a seed to becoming a tree, to help them in the processes so that becomes a force. So because a lot of us, we get revelation or encounter, but how do you have somebody walking alongside you? Like I have a spiritual director in my life that I've hired that helps me in my processes. We're checking in where I'm at, but it's also coaching me, taking the goal that is in, asking me the right questions, helping me to get clarity of what I'm doing. So it's part of my own journey, but it's going to be like a 6 weeks intensive to get people to have baptism of love, healing the orphan spirit, but then also to learning to operate as sons and daughters with a dove, where the supernatural becomes natural as a lifestyle. To be with Jesus, to become like Jesus, and simply live and love like Jesus as a lifestyle. So if you're a housewife or school teacher, you will say, thank God it is Monday, and you will wake up and you will make a difference in that classroom.
Wow.
And be very natural, supernatural. So 6 weeks intensive in March.
How many days a week?
People would go 2 things at home every day. We meet once a week for 6 weeks, where we have the Zoom, and then we have work that people do on a daily basis.
I love it.
So I've just done it for the last 7 months now, being on these daily practices, practicing His presence. And I've taken kind of intensify some of that into a 6-week journey.
Come on. Yeah. I should sign up for that. I love you, Leif.
I love you.
And thank you guys for watching. Like I said before, leave a comment, hit like, hit subscribe. I know that this episode's blessed you. It's certainly blessed me. And hop on over to Leif's website, do all the things, buy all the things, sow into this ministry. You guys know what you're doing, and you know I only bring on the best, and I only recommend the best. And Leif, I 100% recommend whatever you're doing. You guys are amazing. Thank you for watching,
Yay.
and we'll see you on the next episode.